Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to one more session of Code Night New Zealand. And tonight we have a special guest, Vic Pardana. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. How's everyone?
Well, it's a pleasure having you here, like in our user group. And you're bringing like an interesting topic tonight, right? Building AI apps the easy way with Semantic Kernel SDK. Could you give us like a teaser of what you're bringing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so basically, as most people probably already know what semantic kernel is, I'll introduce what semantic kernel a little bit more from practical point of view, um, and also Aspire, .NET Aspire. So how you can sort of enable these two amazing SDKs and build amazing experiences for your intelligent assistant. So I'm trying to make it as real world and practical as possible, and hopefully people can follow along.
Oh, that's awesome. So interesting topics, I would say, really hot topics, and that's going to be a great session. Before you start, Vicky, let me just introduce the user group to whoever is coming here for the first time, right? So if you don't know, we're Code Night New Zealand, we're user group. We have a particular like intent, right? We're a community group with a goal of bringing like some sort of content for developers. And we love coding. We follow best practices on software development languages, technologies. In general, we tend to focus a little bit more on the Microsoft stack, but we're open to all technologies, really. And as you can see, like the intent of the user group is to enable developers with practical knowledge to excel and launch their careers. As you can see here, that we are part of different groups. For example, AzureTar.com, right? So we're a cloud group of enthusiasts where we get to share the latest and greatest on the cloud native space. Vic knows this really well because he's shared that before or on this group before. Also sponsored by .NET Foundation.org, which is an entity that looks after the different open source .NET projects. And JetBrains, software tooling for developers. With no further ado, Vicky, the floor is yours, man. If you can bring like your screen, and then yeah, you can
Yeah, we'll
see
do. Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully I share the right screen.
this one. Here we go.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you again, Marcel, and everyone who joined. Thank you for having me. Really humble and really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about a little bit about .NET Aspire as well as Semantic Kernel and how they can both make your life hopefully more enjoyable by leveraging those two platforms to build your intelligent assistant. So a little bit about myself. My name is Vic Pardana, so I'm ISV app dev architect or partner solution architect within Microsoft. Focused on Asia and ASEAN market, and I work with a bunch of colleagues as well within Asia. How we can hopefully leverage different parts of Asia around technologies, anything related to enabling community. So would love to be involved in that. So this is actually a really good timing as well for all Asia and New Zealand community. But in terms of timing, it's great. I think it's afternoon most Asian region. So let me just move on. So let me just move my slide. Hopefully you guys can see it. So a little bit about me. I'm a middle-aged, sort of, you can call it, dad with two boys. Work currently as an ISV architect at Microsoft. I work with a lot of ISVs. So my passion and general kind of day-to-day is around ISVs and how we can innovate and unlock the very essence of a cloud and AI. My background is previously it was DevOps, and then recently moved towards app innovation or dev more recently. And I recently also had the privilege to help kick off the Semantic Kernel community office hours for the APAC region, Asia Pacific region, predominantly when it was pre-release. And so now we have a monthly sort of session, which I hope, hopefully I can share that link as well at the end so that people can join in that monthly call. So I'm generally curious on all new things. So you'll find me working on very much cloud native related stuff. Not necessarily focus only just Azure, but also outside of Azure. So such as Kubernetes, container apps, and of course recently AI. Also, I'm a maintainer of open source projects as well, such as PS Docs and obviously this Aspire Shop as well. So keen to work with community and learn very much on new tech. So a little bit of agenda, what we're going to be covering. Very brief overview of what Aspire and Semantic Kernel. I wanted to cover from practical point of view so that most of us know, when to leverage, these two SDKs. I expect you to have a bit of, at least heard about those stacks. I like to make it as practical as we can. So I'll probably do a bit of, later on demos and hands-on and highlight different parts of the code as we go along building this intelligent app. I'm not going to be covering everything, like building a UI and all that stuff. It's pretty much a CSS, HTML. But you'll see that by the end of this session, you'll see hopefully a working example of how you can leverage these two SDKs together. I'll share some links as well, including those community office hours that you can actually hop on, especially in the APAC region for us in New Zealand, Australia, as well as Asia. So that's a little bit about what we're going to be covering. And first of all, I'm just going to start off with, why we're here. I mean, why are we doing this? What's the importance of doing this whole conversational sort of AI, right? It's important that, in the future, people kind of, right now, whenever you go to a website, you kind of interact with a static thing. Like, if you think about, when you have pre-Google, right, scenario where you want to kind of search for something, you'll have to actually create different sites. If you're kind of old enough like me, Alta Vista, those Yahoo search and so on in the past, where it's quite mind blowing as soon as kind of Google came along, and they kind of changed the paradigm of search, and really it changes the way you interact with with websites. Now with this conversational AI, is that the idea is that it's gonna change that paradigm again. Right. So when you interact with a website, it's no longer a static or kind of a pretty static website. It's now can somewhat interact, and you can talk to it as if you are going to a particular place or store and be greeted with a human. So we have that concept around agents, right? So let's pretty much dive in around the conversational AI and understand the difference between, we had the concept of chatbot, we have the concept of co-pilot. There's so many different sort of terms. But if you think about one thing from here, by 2025, next year, Gen AI, based on Gartner analysis here, Gen AI will be embedded in 80% of conversational AI offerings. And enterprises also will embed the virtual conversation assistant. So we're already seeing that now, and it's going to be growing even more. So the next question is, is a Copilot just a chatbot, right? So what's the key difference between Copilot and a chatbot? And there's a lot of kind of misconstrued sort of definition of this. But if you think at the very nature of what Copilot is and what chatbot is, if you think about the previous kind of chatbot iteration, a lot of it's all predefined, and it's all predefined as in a static way. So you basically provide a different set of answers and questions, and then you hope that one of those questions will be within those kind of dictionary, right, of what chatbot is. Whereas with Copilot, there's a little bit of that generative aspect of that, right? So it offers a lot more than predetermined logic than a chatbot. So it's important to kind of know the difference between the two. And there's a lot sort of things involved as to, you can ground multiple data sources, you can generate different content based on what you actually put, and then it will, can generate more, effectively extended content. So I work a lot with ISVs, and there's a lot of stuff that we can do with regards to Copilot. I'm not going to kind of bore you around that, but the idea is that there's different tech and different personas. And again, if you think about why we're doing it, is that if you have a very busy e-commerce website, and just imagine this as well, that you can have an assistant that can provide accurate responses to user queries, and then that can be accessed any day. Just imagine if you also go to a shop now and try to access someone or talk to someone. It's so hard to find that person. And basically what this effectively allows you to do is bringing that online experience, or bringing that offline experience in a store online. That way, you get the same fidelity in terms of the support and the level of, tailoring, if you will, in terms of, hey, you ask about something around e-commerce, say I want to buy a pram for my kids. I can just, ask those questions that are very, very specific. Right? Can it actually be, brought onto an airplane in a cabin, for example, and that gives you an idea on how customizable this AI assistant is. And also with this, important with whole building this new AI intelligent assistant and so on, it's important that we want to make it as cost efficient as possible, right? So we want to be able to handle multiple queries simultaneously. Obviously, if you go to a store, there's all the limitation on a physical thing. However, if you're doing it visually, you don't have that kind of visual limitation. You do need to ensure that you can scale and you can support those scenarios. Therefore, cloud native, such an important thing that will go hand in hand with building intelligent assistant. Pay only for resources that you use, avoid costs of scaling out, not unnecessarily scaling out too much, and also try to adjust to match the demand, and also can handle the peak times and large data volumes, right? So that's important with that. Hence, that .NET Aspire sort of comes in as well. I'm just going to go through a little bit about the different the two SDKs that we talked about previously, the .NET Aspire, as well as the Semantic Kernel. I'll start with .NET Aspire first. So it's GA already, by the way. So it's already been around for, I think, since build around May this year. It's about a few months ago now. So what this .NET Aspire does, it really improves the experience of your development, right? So it has the ability for you to build those resilient, observable, and configurable applications. It is an opinionated framework, which means that a lot of the various building blocks that you see here, there might be some implementation component that's already in place. For example, if you have some what we call reliability, this part of production ready characteristics. There might be a library called Poly that allows you to, give you that retry logic from kind of the start. In addition to that, it is going to make your job a lot easier for you to be able to stitch together different components, and then you can then integrate that with each other so that you can handle those things that you need from a cloud native application. So as you can see in the demo later on, .NET Inspire is well integrated with container apps. So be it, if you need caching, if you need database, if you need storage and so on, you can integrate that with container apps as well as different components like SQL and MySQL and so on. And really, my favorite feature of all is really bringing that feedback, run telemetry. So how hard is it when you develop to know whether that's going to work in production or whether that's going to be kind of have similar, like monitoring or telemetry. So with Aspire, that actually got built from the start. So you got OTel, you got all this open telemetry that's built in that allows you to then integrate and then extend as you see fit in production. So here's an example. All right, so Aspire gives you those building blocks, provide those components. So whenever you want to create a sort of a project in Aspire, effectively you put together these different components, what we call an app model. So it's a collection of those resources that make up your distributed application. So you have what we call app host, and then we have different resources, right? So we have container resource, we got project resource. So for example, I've got caching, I've got API service, and then I've got web front end. And in order for you to stitch or configure that, it's all, just a few lines of code, as you can see here. So there's no need for you to actually kind of configure that from scratch and talk to different SDKs or APIs in order for you to be able to make them interoperable. So yeah, so this is an example of that, and we can see that how we can make that practical for our application later on when we build Intelligent Assistant. All right, so that's a little bit about Aspire. Next, I'm going to talk about, just before Semantic Kernel, I'm going to talk about an agent, the concept of agent. And it's important to understand that a little bit, just to really define what an agent really is in the context of LLM application. There's a lot of, agentic, the world. There's a lot of that. I mean, Satya mentioned about the world of agent, agentic revolution, and it's important to kind of understand that the fundamental of it. So, what is an agent? So we have these two words. It's kind of taken from British Dictionary, agency, and we have agent. And agency, it's that state of acting or exerting power, whereas agent, it has that ability to perceive its environment and takes action, autonomously in order to achieve a certain goal. And it can also improve performance as well. So it's not an static thing, as what we talked about when we talked about Copilot and chatbot. In a way, it's has these four characteristics. So one is persona, second is models, third is data, and fourth is functions. So what persona is effectively those, personality. Right. So how do you define, how do you react? What are the different guidelines for your agent to operate with? And then you have these models, right? Obviously, we've got LLMs, we've got SLMs, and fine-tuned models. So SLM is small language model, LLM large language models, and they, it doesn't have to be a certain model, right? So long as you have access and be able to leverage and access the networks, I think that's really what it is. And data, it has access to external data for grounding, so that if you want to be able to make it personalized or personalize your agent, it can be tailored to your needs. So if you have a large knowledge base and you have something that that you want to actually get your agent to talk to be able to refer to make it relevant to your companies, I think that's where data and grounding is important. And then we do have functions, which effectively a set of skills or set of abilities for you to be able to interact with external world. So that's really what function really does. And really important to note is that without all of those four, it's going to be incomplete. So agent, in order for you to actually take advantage of agent, you need to have these four components. So obviously, what Bill Gates is saying in this whole biggest revolution in computing, since we went from typing commands to tapping on icons, so it's a big paradigm shift in terms of moving. When I mentioned about Google search and all that stuff, right? And then we moved to the world of agents and so on. So we're going to change the way we interact with webs. All right, so that's a little bit about agent, and then I'm going to move on to semantic kernel. And semantic kernel is really made up or kind of the three concepts about semantic kernel. They're not different than what agent is, right? In a way. So we've got this core concept called plugins, we've got planners, and we've got personas. So plugins, again, so similar to those functions that you saw earlier. So using those APIs that your team, maybe you already have an existing API. For example, if it's related to payroll, where you need to actually execute certain APIs in order to interact with external entities like banks. So that's what plugins allowing you to do, and that's a lot of plugins that you can build because there's no limited. In a way, there's no limit as to what plugin that you can build because it comes down to your requirements and your goals. And then we have planners. So the planners, it's effectively using the concept of plugins to model a task sequence based on reasoning. And we're going to be diving a little bit about what planners are going to be and why we sort of recommend to move away from kind of what we call this different handlebar planners and so on. We want to talk a little bit about that, but we have what we call function calling within semantic kernel that allows you to leverage LLM to actually make that decision for you. And then personas is those plugins and planners that can be used to be able to interact with your systems. So in addition to the plugins, in addition to planners, and also the system prompt that you put in, you'll be able to create what we call an agent. Within the kernel itself, so I'm just going to go through that quickly. Within the kernel itself, the good thing about, if I have to say good thing, but the main difference between what we call, there's a lot of people using LangChain. People also use kind of different other platforms as well, other SDKs. Is that everything within semantic kernel is actually somewhat tracked in a kernel. So it's not chained together, but it's actually something that you kind of stored within the kernel. That allows you to, basically interact with different models to be able to invoke the AI services. You'd be able to interact with plugins, that plugins and planners and so on. So the kernel is the core of semantic kernel, right? It is responsible for holding all those information so that you can orchestrate your code. So you focus on orchestrating your code rather than sort of chaining different components together, because it's all kind of built in within the kernel. It's all available for you to access, as you can see later on when I show you the code. So yeah, that's a little bit about the concept on semantic kernel. The idea is that you have this basically orchestrator that allows you to easily build agents where you can interact or add in, or what we call plug and play, with different state, different memories, different side effects, or what we call plugins, and then also different models. And then, the idea is that, we want to, bridge the gap between, machine learning researcher, ML researchers, and also developers, and, bridge the chasm, if you will, within, by the use of semantic kernel. So .NET Aspire and semantic kernel better together. Believe so, because it allows you to, semantic kernel allows you to build those agents with plugins, personas, planners, and .NET Aspire hones in on that first-class experience for devs to really iteratively build, test, debug, and so on, and also making it easy for you to, build and develop your applications to make it, basically easy rollout to production. And it's all cloud native. Talk about container as well, container apps and so on. It's all making it a lot easier going forward. All right. So with that, I'm going to move on to a little bit of the hands-on component. But before we get in, I'm just going to stop. If there's any questions, Marshall, do you want me to stop, or do you want me to go along?
No, just go along. No questions so far. We just had William Liebenberg just saying hi. So he's there,
Awesome.
like watching us. Yeah.
Awesome.
But
Good stuff.
no, all good. Just carry on, man. Yeah. Excited.
Thank you. So basically, what we have is a diagram that highlights kind of the different components that we're talking about here. And I use Aspire Shop as an example, as a base, for us to be able to kind of extend. Because we don't really need to build everything from scratch. We've already got that. Good thing about Aspire is that there's a lot of examples, and you can leverage that. So we have this Aspire Shop that's available on samples as well. I think I'm going to share the links as well at the end. Should actually have the link in QR code. My bad, but I'll do that later on. And so what we're going to be building in this architecture, as you can see, all the blue ones already exist, right? So they're existing. So we've got front end, we've got basket service, we've got catalog DB. But then we also going to need to add a different component so that we can make that application to be interactive, right? So we're going to add intelligent assistant on top, and then we can what we're doing here is effectively adding another component called chat service, and that chat service can then be integrated with any LLM. In this case, I used OpenAI. With semantic kernel, you can see how easy it is for you to be able to change you to different models. So if you want to use Azure OpenAI, that's great. You use OpenAI as well, or you can use the models like Llama and open source models as well, or even SLM. So what we have, so this thing here, right? So Aspire Shop sample with this, basically this bunch of items in the catalog, and then what we're doing is effectively adding ability for you to be able to chat within that. So I have this little snapshot. Hopefully this demo works, but if not, I've got the picture to prove it. And then we can move on from there, right? So what we're going to be building, so we've got this chat service. We've got the front end, obviously. So we're going to need to build, for those of you who are expert in HTML and CSS, you'll appreciate all my advanced CSS demos. And then we have the chat service, and we're going to need to wire everything together in Aspire. And that's really the key here, is that you'll be able to wire up these two together as easy in few lines of code. And that's really the magic, I feel, from this whole demo. So the chat service API is a simple controller with an API chat endpoint. So we're going to use dependency injection. There's some plugins like system prompt and filter catalog item to be able for you to be able to access those catalog. So we're going to be injecting or adding some API functions within catalog. And then I'm going to add a few short examples so you can see those things in real time. And then we have a front end, which is just a bunch of HTML, which probably doesn't. There's probably a bunch of errors in it, but it works. You can have a simple chat box with the user input so that you can toggle it and then you can input text. So as simple as that. So I'm gonna do a quick switch. Hopefully this one works.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'm gonna play this, and hopefully this one works. And then we can go to the code. So I'll just do the demo first, the actual application, and then after that, we'll do the actual thing, the actual code, and I'll walk through the code. So whenever you run a Aspire sort of project, in this case, so you'll be greeted with this, right? So you have this. So let me just zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So you have this different services that are running, right? So these are all containers, right? And we have a Docker service up and running. So in this case, I'm running it locally. And what we have in this two thing, let me just get my little highlight cursor. So we have this chat service, which is the one that we just added. And then obviously the front end is just the UI, right? So this is just one service that we added, but every single component here is effectively reflected in those what we call app host project, where you can see different components being stood up, and then you'll be able to see the the representation of those components in this resources list. So I'm gonna move on and just click this front end, and so we can see that's the normal kind of catalog, product catalog, and then we have this few items in here. Nothing really fancy. Even if we can add some card in there, but it doesn't really do anything when you click it. It just really just zero it out. You can add more fancy stuff. Would love to get your contribution as well. Okay, so we have this chat thing. Again, hopefully we don't call it chatbot, but people say chatbot. It's fine. Effectively, this is what the intelligent assistant is. So you got the Aspire shop. So it's just a really static message. You can make it, when you load, you can make it so that it interacts with the new greetings, for example. It's really up to you. But I want to save some tokens, so I want to just keep it as simple as possible. So within here, I can interact with that, hello. And then effectively, hey, I'm sorry, I'm unable to assist with that request. It's good. At least I wake up the agent, and it means that you don't have to wake it up, but again, it's just a way for me to actually just make sure that it's actually functioning. But the idea is that it interacts with the backend with OpenAI and interacts with our LLM. So what I'm doing now, so I'm going to ask, hey, can you show me all hoodies? So again, this will effectively, hey, I'll bring all the hoodies and show me the price as well as kind of the hoodies, right, in there, right? And so basically, I got the hoodies, and it actually interacts and navigates me into those hoodies. That way, it's what we call a smart or intelligent assistant. Is that it doesn't only, ask or answer some questions, but also it gives you that experience on the UI. And this is just an initial example. There's a lot more that you can do. That you can actually bring multimodality within Semantic Kernel or within this website, so that make it more accessible to all of your effectively your audience. So I'm going to say, show me all items again. They will show me all items, and that basically kind of the idea is that the intelligent assistant is not only interact with this little chatbot, but it interacts with the website and gives you that whole entirety of the experience. And then this is just, imagination. Just open up your imagination to be able to do a lot more things. This is just a starting point. And again, I would love to get your contribution if you want to contribute to the semantic kernel. I've got some links later on the project. But the idea is that we can add audio, we can add ability for you to shop to this, and you probably saw some demos and build. We can definitely do something on that once that's released, the voice mode, and various other things around image interactions and various things. So yeah, so that's a little bit about kind of what the whole demo is, and I'm glad that it works. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show the code to do that, or to achieve this. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the app host. So I'm going to open up this one. Hopefully it's viewable. It's reasonable size and stuff. If
Yeah, I
not,
think so. Yeah, just zoom in. That's great. Yeah.
okay, perfect. So as you saw previously in the diagram that I showed you, so you would have just grab this, move this one here. So this whole thing, right? So you got front end catalog service, basket service, and so on. And we've got chat service as well. And that effectively can be represented within this whole program within App Host project. So we can see we've got catalog DB here. And then you've got Postgres database. And we have basket cache component resource in here. So you're basically doing a lot of, I guess, building blocks stitching rather than kind of building everything from scratch. It's all declarative, so you can just enable it and just say, hey, I want to add catalog. I want to add, Radish cache. And I want to add catalog service and so on. So it's all within here. And good thing about it is that you can, for example, that little diagram that says catalog and Postgres, in order for you to interact with this catalog DB, what you have is effectively you can add this with reference, right? So it's easy as that, where you can actually just interact with from one catalog service to be able to contact or interact with Postgres. And same with basket service. You have a reference to basket cache service as well. So I have it as a box or a box in here. Probably not the best representation of the diagram. And here's where kind of the integration with Azure OpenAI and the LLM happens. So you can see I'm going to skip this part here for the time being. I'm just going to add, where's the chat service? Oh, there you go. So the chat service in here, right? So this line 30, where you can actually see, basically I added these different variables that basically provides as a parameter within my deployment. Again, I can show you some of those keys. Probably not the actual key, but I'll show you the actual variables and how that's translated in Aspire. So you can see I've got environment, Azure OpenAI, chat deployment name, endpoint, API key, and then with reference of catalog service and Postgres. So that's really the chat service that we built. And then let me just open up the website again. And then as you can see within the Aspire shop here, let me just open up these details. There you go. Right, so you got this variables, right? So you got the API key, you got the chat deployment name. Again, I don't want to show you the thing, but you get the gist. So we've got the endpoint, and that's basically where you translate that and being able to see it in Aspire project. It's all built in. It's all ready to go for you to use. And once I have this stuff here, I got front end. The front end will interact with basket service, catalog service, chat service, and so on. So that's basically kind of the way we integrate everything in Spire. The next thing, what I'm going to do is show you the chat service, right? Because that's pretty much really the whole core of this whole project. So we have a chat service. Again, it's just another, kind of program or project that I've added. So really the main thing within here is that we've got a chat controller. So probably won't bore you too much with this, but the idea is that within the controller, you have these different methods, right? So let me just zoom in a little bit.
Cool. Yep.
Yep. So we have these different methods. So one is post message. We have load prompts, and then we have load intent, and then create choices and so on. And I've separated the different functions. I know it's probably easier to have it in one thing so that we can see how it all plays out. But the idea is that I start with the prompts, loading the prompts, which is that persona that we talked about, and then we have get intent, which is to load the intent, or what is this whole question is all about, to actually call a particular plugin in order for me to address that request. And that's basically what intent allows you to do. And then we've got the plugins where we add the prompts, which is those prompts within the the persona. And then we basically add the import plugin from functions, which allows you to add a different plugin. I'll show you this one plugin that I created, which is ability for you to filter catalog item, right? So from that catalog item, you want to be able to respond to natural language. So I want to be able to get and interact with the API that handles catalog item, and then I can retrieve that results and then present it to you in a natural language using LLM. And then we have the intent within here, which is just to execute that effectively the whole kind of, once you stitch together the requests, so the parameters, then you pass it on to LLM to handle that. So let's have a look at the load prompts first. So in the load prompts, we have a plugin called prompts. So within here, just have these prompts. I'll just zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so this whole prompt allows you to effectively ground your agent, right? So you be able to, let me just make it, reformat code. I've got where the thing, let me just, oh, it's fine. You are an AI assistant that helps people find information. You help users find products, get information about product and nothing else. Do not offer to buy products, add to cart, or any other actions. Again, it's all what we call prompt engineering. So if you find catalog items, only mention the name and the price and not any other information. Do not say there's no picture available and so on, right? So these are all kind of based on testing as well. So once, because with LLM, one thing for sure is that it's a non-deterministic thing, right? So you want to be able to get the creative juice from LLM, but at the same time, you want to be able to not, you want to be able to guard it, guard the response so that it doesn't, what we call, hallucinate too much. So that's basically what this prompt engineering allows you to do. So I've got what we call few short examples, as you can see here. Hey, can you show me red t-shirts? And then this is an example of, hey, I found only one red t-shirt, which is this one. Rosalind red t-shirt dash $15. And then this one here, I've got another short example. Can you show me what t-shirts? And then assistant, I found the following what t-shirts, this and this. And this one here is basically a what we call handlebar template, which allows you to add a previous history of the conversation, right? So basically, this whole summarized conversation allows you to, when you have lots and lots of interactions, it will summarize the previous interactions and then add them in within this. And then the user is basically the requests, the actual requests, and then this is where a placeholder for the assistant to be able to provide answer. So that's really the kind of the gist of that plugin, which is what we call a there's two parts of semantic function or native function. Semantic function is effectively this whole ability for you to just use prompt engineering to effectively describe what to do. And then the second file, as you can see, it's a config.json in here. This is giving us ability to provide parameters to our LLM and what sort of settings or parameters that you want to pass into your LLM. So for example, how many tokens, output tokens that you want, what's the temperature, what's the model ID and stuff like that. So it allows you to create a metadata for the chat response about catalog items for the store. And this is what we call a semantic function, which allows you to hopefully build the prompt engineering that gives you that this whole plugin to run the prompt and start grounding it. And the second part is the import plugin from function. So this is, again, the first one is more around persona, right? And the second one is about functionality, which is ability for you to call different API to augment the result so that it's meaningful, it's relevant to your needs. So with this, let me just have a look within here. Show you the plugin first, and then I'll show you how it kind of put together, right? So the plugin within catalog item is very, very simple. So let me just zoom in again. Yeah, okay, this is good. So basically what we have a, basically a description, virtual catalog items, and we have a kernel function within plugin, right? So plugin is basically a list of functions. Return a list of catalog items filtered by name or description. So that's the function, and this is the name and description of the item to be queried. And what I've done is effectively pass in this search text, which is whenever you search for hoodies, for example, or all items, effectively that search text is going to be passed in within this parameter here. And within here, we going to this catalog chat client. This catalog chat client effectively is an API within the catalog service. So let me just have a look. I've got catalog client here, which is this thing here, and effectively this chat client is just zoom in again, bringing in ability for you to call search items async in this case, that allows you to search the actual catalog items, right? So within here, this effectively integrated within catalog service. The catalog service, I've got a catalog API in here. Let me just go catalog API. Again, you can see the source code later on. Yeah, so it is in this one here.
Was item search, this one.
53, yeah. So that's right, item search. So within here, it allows you to effectively just a entity framework that will search for that particular catalog item within the database, and then we'll return that as an object, and with LLM and with Semantic Kernel plugin, that will convert it into natural sort of language response. So yeah, so that's kind of the I guess the nitty gritty within how you kind of build it in plugin and so on, add persona. And then within the chat controller, as you can see the flow in here. So we've got load intent, which is this get intent prom.yaml, which effectively ability for you to set the ground similar to persona. And I think I might have that in here. Yeah. So basically, I want to know what the intent is for this particular question, right? So if there's any query, there should be an intent, and that intent should, hopefully reflect on what plugin I should call, right? So that's really the key aspect of this whole intent process. So just reply back with the intent, name or description of the item to be queried is the intent. If you're unsure, reply with choices and so on, right? So I'm just gonna go back to my program, and then within here, which is not program, sorry, chat controller. Within here, I've got the intent. I've got choices, so I've got all items, unrelated, and conversation, and then filter catalog item. The filter catalog item is that plugin, and conversation is basically, hey, I don't want to deal with you again. Let's move on. Unrelated is basically not related. And I think I have unrelated and conversation kind of the same, but yeah, we'll see how we go. And as you can see here, there's different short examples, right? So, hey, if you ask me about show me all items, the intent, it should be all items. Show me all hoodies, intent should be filter catalog item. Show me all t-shirts, that should be filter catalog item, right? So basically giving the few short examples so that our agent can understand, whenever there's a question related to this, it actually should be this intent or that intent. That's really kind of guiding the agent a little bit to be able to point in the right direction. Google me a recipe for a chocolate cake. That's unrelated. So that's that's basically something that you need to kind of cater for when you create agent, because if you don't do it, it will try to answer it, right? So as you know, with LLM. And then in this, basically the idea is that to get intent, again, there's some nuance around the whole kind of syntax in here, but this one is interesting, right? So you have this switch statement, so handle different intents with corresponding responses or actions. So you have end conversation. Okay, thank you for shopping. All items, here are all items. If it's unrelated, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. So you want to catch that intent early so that you actually don't use tokens as much, right? So with this, effectively, I know the intent. If the intent is actually, not necessitating me to actually call the API and process the tokens and so on, I want to catch that early so that I can end the conversation kind of hopefully early. And then you have these different responses and so on that you can put in. And basically, we come to the end. This is basically the once it's not in one of those switches, switch statement. Sorry. You basically be able to basically process the query, right? Definitely, it's not in this three items, these three choices, and then I'm going to go ahead and then do that processing, do that execution. So I want to add system message, got the system prompt, which you already have in here, and then add the user message, which is that query that you provided in the chat box, and then basically this is the part where you make a call to OpenAI or to your LLM to be able to get the response, right? So once you get the response, you get an object, which is this catalog items page, and it will just basically ensures that you can deserialize from that object. So you'll be able to create the chat service and then go back to the front end and then be able to present you with the result. And then here's is basically ensuring that this is important, this particular thing. So author role equal to tool. This is to ensure that we actually calling a particular plugin, right? So this is the concept of function calling, which is quite advanced. But the idea is that if you have multiple plugins, say filter catalog item, add to cart, you know, maybe checkout, you want to make sure that those are, basically coming from a particular function or particular plugin. And in order for you to determine which plugin to call, you basically get this attribute called author role .tool within function calling. So function calling is an ability for you to get LLM to determine which plugin to call in a way. So it's ability for you to make it easier for you to determine which plugin to use. And this whole thing around, this going back to this, then it will go back to front end, and then front end will process the result within our UI. So yeah, so that's really kind of it's quite convoluted in a way, a little bit. But if you think about it, the idea is that get the intent right, and then you build the plugins, you add the user message, system message, and so on, and then you use basically semantic kernel function calling in order for you to get the right plugin to call. That's really kind of the idea here. So this whole thing, if you go up a little bit, this one here, this particular one here, 125, where I've got tool call behavior auto invoke kernel functions, which means I'm relying on LLM to determine, based on the description of my plugin, which plugin that I should call. But in this case, I'll make it so easy because I've got 3 intents, and then the last intent is effectively filtered catalog item. But if you have many, many, many plugins, you need to be able to better control that. So yeah, so that's a little bit about semantic kernel. I think I'm going to, I know we're at time. I'm just going to show you a little bit on let me just see, under components. Let me just, pretty sure it is somewhere in the service. Yeah, on the chat. So let me just go here. So it's the UI, that expensive UI that we're creating. Yes, there's an HTML. And important that as soon as you actually get the results within here, here's basically the process to basically the intent and the interactions with that. So this 4 lines here. So if the intent is not null, so you're gonna search the text, right? Use that search text. So you saw when I asked for all items, it actually navigates that to all items. And then same thing when you ask for white marks or all marks, then it will actually just add fetch text in here within the URI, and then you'll be able to then navigate that in the front end. By the way, this is a Blazor page, a Blazor UI. So yeah, so that's a little bit about it. I'll probably gonna stop there. I'm gonna share some links, and then if there's any questions, please go ahead.
No questions. What I find like interesting is that you're based on the response, right? You get like from LLM, and then you sync that with the UI, right? So that's the last bit there. Well, it's really interesting. I think like with the different plugins, right? You mentioned about if you have more plugins. I think like the well-known one, at least like the I had explored, was around like sending emails, right? From semantic kernel. But yeah, it's really well. I think it's really clever how you put like things combined on a service, right? Even like bring it within .NET Aspire. That's really cool. Yeah, really love it. Yeah. Got a
Awesome.
question for you. It's more like opinionated question.
Yeah.
Uh, for .NET Aspire, I know that things originated with .NET, but now Aspire is being made available to Python, Node.js. Do you think like the name is going to change to maybe Azure Aspire or something like that?
That's a good point. Interesting. It would be a product question. I'm sure. Who's this? I forgot now already. It's black out on me. Um, the founder of Aspire. Would have thought a little bit about it. But if I have to say, my opinion, um, I would keep it Aspire, and just not put .NET or anything on top of it, right? Um,
Yeah.
just my thought, just my own opinion. But I'm sure the product team and the marketing team would have, you know, had a lot of discussions about this and how they're gonna
Yeah.
market it. Because I love Aspire as a name, and it's such in a way, it's such a good thing to aspire to, right? So because it's
Mhm.
a lot of devs and a lot of production builds and so on. It's so convoluted, to make it, start with something that is gonna create a lot of, or leap and bounds, more productive from day one, by putting together those different components, even though they're opinionated. It's such a great start, than starting from scratch.
Yeah. Well, we got like some questions just coming across. Uh, the one like first one I have like is from Tash Fatma. How to train more? Can we store in database or storage? Uh, that's the question. Yeah.
Okay, train more. What was the question?
Well, how to train more? I think would be around maybe the plugins. I don't know, Fatima, if you have more details about like the training that you're meaning. She's saying like, what's the best way? I don't know if that would be with the knowledge base or with the details they were grabbing from within the
Okay.
module, right? I think
Yeah,
that would be
yeah,
something to do with LLM.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a sister project, within Semantic Kernel called Kernel Memory. As you see in the third link, in that is such a timely question. And what it allows you to do, effectively allows you to ingest, different data. We call build a data pipeline, and integrate that with LLM. So, for example, if you've got like big databases, maybe one in Elastic, one might be in SQL, one might be in Cosmos, or might be in Mongoose. You can stitch together those, um, different memory, we call it, right? So different memory pipelines, and channel it through within our application. So let me just show you a little bit about what it can do, right? So in this case, what we have is that we interact with the API directly, right? And it's good. It may not be scalable, right? Because you're going to need to create APIs for different things, and then you have to call those APIs. It may not be quick, but if you want to, what we call index all of those data sets. So if you have a large database, so for example, I've got a catalog DB in here, and I want to index those, catalog items, and then I use this pattern called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and then now we've got graph RAG as well, which probably discuss another day. Um, it allows you to just directly access, or talking to, in a way, talking to a database without you kind of having that intermediary API in order for you to interact, or get that information, right? Because it's all processed in this kernel memory, um, thing, within here. So if I want to have talk to white t-shirt and so on, I don't need to call API. I know I've got the index data from there. I just talk to that data, directly. So, well, not directly, but you need to have indexing. That kernel memory allows you to do that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, definitely like explore a little bit more about that, Tosh. We have like another question from Nick Wang. Is it possible to configure the execution order or sequence of multiple plugins?
Good question. Yes. Um, so we have the planners, we have plugins, right? Planner is effectively, that um, ability or the capability for you to be able to, set the sequence of those plugins. However, what we do actually recommend, Semantic Kernel team actually recommends, is that try to use function calling where possible. I know that function calling is a bit non-deterministic, and that you do need to rely on LLM to, based on your description of your plugin and so on, so that it calls the right plugin. You can kind of, nudge in a little bit and just say, hey, call that plugin, please call that plugin. Like, in a way, you can't do that. However, in Semantic Kernel, hopefully sometime late this year, there is a function choice behavior capability that will be added. So you can use function calling, but you can advertise your functions to be prioritized more, right? To LLM, so that LLM can actually call that particular um, plugin first, and then the next plugin second, and so on. So you can do that. So I'll have to share that link shortly as well. So that's effectively a ability for you to use function calling, but with the ability for you to choose the right plugin. We call it function choice behavior. It's actually available as an experiment at the moment within Semantic Kernel, but it should be hopefully GA later this year.
Nice. Yeah. Got like a feedback from Tash. So great. Got the answer. I think that, she was really keen here a little bit more about that. Well, we don't have like more any other questions, right? I think I'm just getting to the ends. Like any other final considerations, Vic? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this is the time for you to really experiment, and not only experiment. It's the time for you to put it out there for your production application. Semantic Kernel is already GA for a while now. We are in 1.2 now, 1.220 in .NET. It's available also in Python as well, and Java, and they're all GA as well. So if you're looking for enterprise grade, production ready, orchestration for your semantic or for your AI agent, definitely Semantic Kernel is the place. And same with .NET Aspire. It's GA as well. And if you're building from scratch, the application is typically is a brand new thing rather than, adding features on top. Definitely recommend checking that out because Aspire gives you that cloud native from the get-go experience. So, yeah.
Well, nice one. Thanks so much, Vic, for being available. I know like you've been being really busy, and I really appreciate like the time and efforts like you coming like this Monday and sharing with us, right? Your evening, even like for the audience as well, right? Just coming here and get to check like your session. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing those links. They are recording there. and yeah, well, I think like we're just getting to the end now to the user group. Thanks so much for coming, staying with us online. Vic again, thanks so much for the presentation. Awesome.
Pleasure.
And well,
Thanks for
to
having me.
all of you guys, yeah, have a great evening and catch you guys later, maybe in a few weeks on the next session of the user group. Cool.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.